Hey, and welcome back to Animation Study Group, the series where I, a beginner in animation, encourage you to follow along as I work my way through this, the Animator Survival Kit by Richard Williams. This is episode 13. At this point, I'm about a third of the way through the book, which means I should see about 30 episodes by the time I finish, which is exciting. We're moving along at a good clip. I feel like I'm seeing some progress, and I hope that if you're following along or if you're learning to animate and you stumbled upon these videos, that you feel like you're making some progress as well. In this video, I'm going to combine two of the lessons that I learned from reading the text into one exercise. The first thing that you'll see me work on is adding some life into a bounce animation. I'm going to take what I established in, I think, episode 2, where I did a bouncing ball for the first time, which maybe just needs some tweaking, but this is my first attempt at this, and I'm pretty delighted. I think it's pretty cool. So I'm going to take essentially that bouncing ball animation, and I'm going to add a frame to the takeoff and the landing, which is, according to the book, going to add some life to the bounce. So we're going to take that motion from an inanimate object just bouncing along to more of a character jumping, taking off, and landing. The second thing that you're going to see me work on here is shortcutting fast motion. The book gives a couple of examples where a character moves really fast out of frame, and instead of animating that motion, you use something in the environment to show the path that they took. There's an example in the book where a school of fish gets startled, they take off, and they leave a trail of bubbles, which implies the path that they took and the motion that the animator didn't have to animate, which sounds like a pretty cool trick to me, and I'm excited to try it out. I'll explain the scene that I thought up to try to work on these two new lessons. For the jumping component, I figure what better subject than a frog. So I'm going to animate a frog that jumps into the scene and jumps into a body of water. Then I figured I would have the frog get scared by something in the environment and take off the screen and leave a trail of water from whatever it jumped into. Then I was thinking about setting, and since Akira Toriyama passed away this month, Dragon Ball Z has been on my mind quite a bit, and I figured I would put this on planet Namek and make this a Namekian frog. Dragon Ball Z was one of the first animated shows that really grabbed my attention as a kid. My first steps for this exercise were pretty typical for me. I found some reference for this one though, which is a little bit different. I found myself a Namekian frog and a scene from Planet Namek to grab some colors from. And then over here you can see my first little kind of scratch note of how the arc of motion is going to look. When I started this out, I thought that it's just going to be a regular frog. And then as I moved along, I realized I was going to put this on Planet Namek. So the frog ends up being a Namekian frog at the end. And this guy in the middle, I'm just not sure what's going on with him. You can see over here on the left-hand side, this is the frame that is kind of the most important to this exercise, and the same one on the other side. This is where the character's feet are still going to be making contact with the ground, but the character is extending into that arc. So the character, instead of with the ball bouncing animation, which I think I kind of got wrong on my first attempt, it does look a little bit like it's kind of leaping, almost like a frog. It should just kind of take off from the ground. It might squash on impact, but when it kind of launches back up, you don't really, according to the book, you don't really want it to squash and stretch and stay connected with the ground as it takes off, because then it looks a little more like hopping than it does bouncing. That's sort of what happened to me when I tried to do the ball bouncing. Now I'm doing it here, but on purpose. So we've got our character's feet still making contact here, but the character is stretching out into that arc of motion, jumps up, follows the arc, and makes it down. And here its front legs or front hands, feet, whatever you want to call them, are making contact with the ground again. And then it settles in to that final extreme pose. Then I sat down and kind of thought about how I wanted to space out all of these animations, and I put together this chart. On the left-hand side, I've got the environment and what's going to happen in the environment, and on the right-hand side, I've got the character animation and what I think is going to happen with the character. We start off, the camera's going to pan from right to left over the course of 24 frames. And I got all this timing just by sitting down and using a stopwatch and thinking about how long I wanted these actions to take place. Then I have the camera sort of zoom in on the scenery, Then the frog is going to hop in on 2s. It's going to start raining on 3s. And then the rain is going to get really heavy. I thought at the same time I would have the frog kind of croak. That doesn't end up happening, but you'll see the rain gets heavy and then lightning strikes, the frog gets scared, and the frog vanishes. And when the frog vanishes, I'm not going to animate the frog. I'm going to kind of improvise. I think I'm going to do it straight ahead, but I'm going to make the water splash in the direction that the frog takes off in. So this is the original plan. You'll see me get into some animating in a second, and at the end you'll see how this actually turned out. I end up messing with some of the timing. I end up just kind of changing a couple details here and there based on how they feel. And I add some effects to the lightning bolt that scares our poor frog here to make it stand out against the background. But yeah, let's get into some animation footage and I'll see you on the other side. Okay, and here is the final result. I didn't record the entire animation process. Sometimes I just start working and get really far along and I realize I forgot to hit record, but I think you get the gist. I will let this loop and I'll talk about what I liked about this animation, what I don't like about it, and what I learned. We'll see the frog jump in here. And you see those frames that I was talking about where the frog makes connection with the ground when it comes in and also maintains connection with the ground as it takes off. The lightning's about to strike here pretty soon and you should see the effect I put on it. The frog gets scared, takes off, but instead of animating that takeoff, you're just getting the water splashing and landing and sort of arcing in the direction that the frog moved in. I had a lot of fun making this one. I feel like I'm making some progress and that feels great. I had fun painting this Namekian background. It's definitely not the best, but there's only so much I can do in like the time I have after work over the course of a week. I would say everything other than the two main points of this exercise, which are the jump in and the take off, are just kind of me improvising, seeing what works, what doesn't work. There's things I would love to change about the way the background looks. There are things I'd like to change about how I have this cloud roll in. I ran into some challenges with that and just kind of had to make it work. I tried to make a shadow appear as the cloud rolls in as well. And animating that ended up being kind of a challenge. I went through a couple different versions of how that was going to be. And then ultimately, it kind of continues to move. I'm not sure if that looks right, but it's all right. And then the rain, I really just wanted to slap something together that was easy to animate and draw rather than bogging myself down with figuring out how to animate raindrops properly. But I think it gets the point across. Not a lot else to say about this, but just as an aside, I'm starting to like the end result of some of the things I'm working on as I'm working my way through this book. I feel like that's just a testament to getting in the practice. I started this series off with basically no drawing experience, no animation experience, just wanted to get into something new. At this point, I'm really excited about the possibilities up ahead. I think it's a really cool art form, and it's great to start to see some of the things I'm making kind of come to fruition. I'm learning how to take something that I've dreamt up and produce it. That's really the goal for me. So that's great. That's exciting. But that'll about do it for this exercise. Hopefully the two takeaways are kind of clear if you're following along, that adding those frames in at the beginning and the end of your bounce are going to help make it lively if you're trying to make a character bounce or jump or leap. And also use your environment if you want to show some fast motion, but maybe don't want to animate the character. Last thing, I am seeing some folks subscribing and some folks watching. Really appreciative. So thank you for tuning in. I hope this is useful for you. I hope you are enjoying learning to animate as well, or just enjoying the videos. If you have any suggestions or comments or want to share what you're working on, would love to see it. I'll keep throwing it out there. I'm going to keep putting these out. It's helping me stay motivated to keep practicing and keep getting better. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care.